This video provides an overview and introduction to practical guidance tools, which are a category of secondary sources that can be useful for the transactional law practitioner. Let's start by defining what practical guidance tools are. There are a variety of practical guidance materials, but they all share two main characteristics. Practical guidance materials are less concerned with explaining the law and are more focused on aiding attorneys in performing the tasks related to their practice, such as drafting a contract or performing due diligence. For example, this screenshot shows a practice note from Thomson Reuters Practical Law on patent license agreements. You can see it provides an outline of considerations when drafting or negotiating a patent license agreement. The note does provide references to the United States Code as well as case law, but only to the extent that it impacts the license agreement. If you needed a better understanding of a patent law topic, a more traditional secondary source, such as a treatise, would provide you with more explanation of the patent law. Practical guidance tools provide more how-to information, including checklists or sample documents. Practical guidance tools also aid in efficiency by streamlining tasks or providing sample documents. Most practical guidance resources are authored or curated by current or former practitioners. The materials are organized by practice area on an integrated platform and will allow you to search for materials by task as well. The three major providers of practical guidance tools for transactional attorneys are Lexis's Practice Advisor, Bloomberg Law, which has practitioner tools and practice area pages, and finally Thomson Reuters Practical Law and Practical Law Connect. We will take a look at these platforms in more detail through class exercises. Some features of practical guidance tools include resources such as practice notes. Practice notes are guides and explanation of current law and practice. They range from a broad overview of a topic to more detailed analysis of specialized topics. Here you can see a practice note from Thomson Reuters Practical Law on poison pills, specifically defending against takeholders and stockholder activism. You can see it set out with a table of contents to help you navigate through the document. It links you to additional content. And again, it will also provide you with citations to primary authority with hypertext links, which you can see here in the callout. Practical guidance materials also include resources such as checklists, timelines, and flowcharts, which provide outlines of legal considerations covering a variety of topics. These tools can help attorneys ensure that all issues are addressed when handling specific aspects of transactional practice. Here are two examples of these types of resources. On the left, you'll see from Practical Law a diagram of U.S. securitization. So if this was a new topic to you and you didn't quite understand how it was structured and who all the parties were, this flowchart might be helpful to you in understanding that. And on the right, there's a checklist, and this is to assist in drafting incentive stock options. So again, it will just kind of give you an overview of what you need to consider and how you would go through the process. The next feature of practical guidance tools are model forms, contracts, and clauses, which also contain annotations to assist with drafting and negotiation. They are also available for download into Word. Here you can see from Lexis Practice Advisor a form buy-side fairness opinion. You can see that it provides drafting notes, and when you click on the icon for the yellow icon for the note, you will then see this box will pop up and it will provide you with information on that particular clause or paragraph within the opinion, which can be very helpful if you're drafting a document. We will work with model forms and agreements later in class. Other features of practical guidance tools include market and deal intelligence, as well as the ability to search for similar transactions. Most platforms also contain a tool that allows researchers to review and compare state laws. Here you can see examples from Bloomberg Law, their deal analytics tool, and again, we'll use these tools in more detail in later classes in the semester, but you can search for various deals and identify comparable deals. And then on the right, you'll see Thomson Reuters Practical Law, their What's Market tool, and they will then analyze deals out in the public sphere and extract information. And this What's Market is on reverse breakup fees due to antitrust failure. And so it will survey it and give you various data points that can be very helpful if you are working on a deal and you need to draft a clause on breakup fees or set an amount for breakup fees. And here is an example from Practical Law on the state comparison tool or the state question and answer tools. And this happens to be on wage and hour laws. So you can see here if you needed a quick overview of the wage and hour laws in Massachusetts, it's available here on Practical Law. And you can see it's dated as of March of 2016. So currency is something that you'll always want to keep in mind when using these tools. We've reviewed the characteristics and features of practical guidance tools. Now let's consider when you should be using them in your research process. Once you've identified the legal issues and you're preparing to begin a specific task, that is a good time to see if there is a practical guidance tool that's relevant to you. Also, if you have an assignment in a new area of transactional law and you want to get a basic overview. So if you're new to public company work and you want to understand the annual reporting process, you could check out one of the practical guidance tools on annual reports. That would just help give you a broad overview of what tasks might be involved and what primary authority or securities regulations would be involved in that type of activity. Practice guidance tools are also helpful to use if you're going to be drafting or negotiating an agreement or contract and you want to review samples or you want to identify clauses that you might need to include. And finally, if you need to gather information on what a standard clause or term may be in a particular industry or area, the tools that are included on these platforms can be helpful to you in gathering that information and determining what's market. Practical guidance tools can be very helpful, but when you're using them, it's helpful to keep these considerations in mind. First, always remember they're considered a secondary source, and as we saw in the first video on more traditional secondary sources, they're not considered binding authority, and you shouldn't be citing to them as authority if you're writing a formal memo or an opinion, like an opinion letter. You'll always want to consider currency, as I mentioned earlier, with the Massachusetts wage and hour Q&A. Always keep an eye out for the last update for the guidance that you're looking at as the laws are changing, and it may have an impact on the task that you're performing. Again, consider jurisdiction. Some of these materials are geared on a more national or federal level, and they're not taking into account your particular state. So the law may be different. So again, keep that in mind. Also bias and perspective, especially if you're looking at sample forms or contracts. Keep in mind who's drafting, whose point of view the document is being drafted by. Is it the employer or is it the employee? Is it the acquirer or the target? All of that will weigh heavily on how helpful those resources are to you. And then just remember that based on all of these considerations, you should be using these materials as guidance only. None of them are tailored to your particular client situation. So always keep that in mind. We will be working with all three of these major platforms in class, but let's take a quick look at how to access the materials on each platform in case any of them are new to you. Lexis Practice Advisor is accessed through Lexis Advance, so you just click on the tic-tac-toe box up here, and then you'll be given the option of the other resources available through Lexis Advance, and you'll want to click on the compass, the Lexis Practice Advisor. Practice Advisor is organized by practice area. So from the main screen, you'll want to pick the relevant practice area. And then this screenshot is showing you the corporate and M&A practice area. And you can see that you can browse the materials by content type. So you can see there are checklists, practice notes, forms. You can also search by jurisdiction. So if you know your jurisdiction and you want to focus in that way, you can toggle over to searching by jurisdiction. And then finally, you can search by task. So this would be, by the function that you need to carry out. And you can locate materials that way. You can access Practical Law and Practical Law Connect directly through their own websites, or you can access it through Westlaw, traditional legal research Westlaw. So up here in the pull-down menu, you can see you have access to Practical Law and Practical Law Connect. Let's look at straight Practical Law first. So Practical Law, again, is organized by practice area. You can also search by resource type or jurisdiction. Once you select your practice area, you'll be then directed to that specific page. So this is the capital markets and corporate governance page. This is primarily public company materials. And then you can browse by topic. You could search for content here up in the main search box. And you have access to the What's Market tool as well. Again, that's a feature we'll look at later in class. I also want to show you Practical Law Connect. I'm not sure this will be available in your law firms when you begin your practice, but I wanted to review it here. Again, it's organized by practice area. You'll need to select your relevant practice area. Practical Law Connect differs from Practical Law in that it organizes the material differently. You can search for resources by task or content type. In addition, it's providing materials such as topical news and access to primary authority relevant to the practice area. So you can see it's a bit more robust than Practical Law. It's integrating more of the primary law materials here. It does let you browse by task, which you can't really do on the traditional Practical Law site, or you can browse by content type. In Bloomberg Law, the two main areas where you can locate practical guidance are through the practice centers or practitioner tools, and you can access both of those sites through the Browse All Content tab on the left-hand side of the screen. You can also just start searching for the source in the main search box if you know the name of the site, and then you can click on the link and be directed to the page. And then once you've selected your practice center, this is the corporate practice center, you then will be able to choose from different content. You can see over here on the right-hand side is the practical guidance. There's legal analysis as well. And you can also search across this practice center by terms and connectors or a keyword search and natural language search and locate material that way. So to summarize, practical guidance materials are a category of secondary sources, and they address the how-to of transactional law, with a smaller focus on a complete explanation of the law. If you need a thorough explanation of the law, how it's evolved, how the case law is evolving, you'd want to go to a more traditional secondary source such as a treatise for that type of information. The organization of practical guidance tools and their integration of materials by practice area can save you time in getting up to speed on an issue or a task, and the sample forms and checklists can help you work more efficiently. When using practical guidance tools, just remember to consider the currency, jurisdictional focus, as well as the perspective of the materials, as all of these can impact the value of the materials in your particular client situation. So thank you for watching this video, and we will work with these tools in more depth in class.